I give you the light of Erendian, our most beloved star. May it be a light for you in dark places when all other lights go out.
I'm out. Damn it. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today, we're going to be talking about a very cool light from LA Police Gear. But before we get into the video, if you'd like to help out the channel in any way, you can like, share, and subscribe because, of course, all of that is free. I also have a Subscribe Star, which is basically a pro to a Patreon. We do monthly giveaways on there, as well as extra content, including some Form 1 content that we're going to be having very soon on the channel. So if you're interested in any of that, I also have steel plates, which should be in stock very, very soon. By the time that this video goes up on Saturday, everything that I have should be shipping on the following Monday. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about this light. Actually, one last thing to mention to the YouTube reviewer watching this video, all shooting was done on in a controlled environment on private ranges. So this is the LA Police Gear light. I forget exactly what they call it. I'll put it on screen for you guys. But basically, it is a TLR-1 clone. It is very, very similar to it and looks nearly identical with a few small differences. And importantly, it fits into basically every TLR-1 holster on the market. Now, your mileage may vary on that, but we will go into the different holsters that it does fit later on. I do want to say that LA Police Gear, they actually reached out to me and wanted me to do some videos on some of their products, and this was one of their products that interested me quite a bit, so I did not pay for this product. And on top of that, I will have an affiliate link in the description or on my website on the guns and gear section, and if you purchase something from them using my link, I make like 7%, so I want to be very upfront with you guys on that. So they do pay me commission, so keep that in mind throughout the rest of this review. So starting off with just some basic features about the light itself. It is an 800 lumen light, which I believe is the same as the standard Streamlight TLR1, but of course not as much as the HL version, high lumen version, which is 1000 lumens, which is a little bit more than this. Now, comparing this to the Streamlight TLR1, again, nearly identical form factor, identical switches, basically. Mounting system is, again, virtually identical. The main difference, though, is, of course, the price. This light retails, generally speaking, for $60, somewhere in that price range. I believe right now it's on sale for like $50, which is an incredible value. And the Streamlight TLR-1HL is generally $120 to $150, depending on where you buy it. So this is anywhere from 2 to 3 times less expensive than the actual TLR1. So we're going to keep that in mind as we go throughout the video. Now, as I mentioned, it has basically identical switches. These switches are very intuitive and very easy to use. And again, I haven't used a TLR1. I have been able to compare it to a TLR1, and again, it's virtually identical. The switches are slightly different. They're not quite as long, but basically, if you're holding it with your thumbs forward grip, push down to activate the very bright light, and then you just hold it there. Now, if you push up, that's locked in position, or if you push down with your index finger on your right hand, it will again lock into position. So it is ambidextrous, so depending on your left, right-handed, this is going to work basically identical for you as long as you're using that thumbs forward grip. You just kind of push down on it and hold it on, and then when you're done moving from target to target, just release and it goes off. Now, I really like the way the switches are set up. They're really wide. They're not quite as long as the TLR1 switches, but they're really wide, so they give you a really good place for you to rest your thumb on. And something that I found that as a side effect of that is that it makes it very, very easy to control the recoil on it. So basically, when I was shooting with this in the dark, when I'm actually using the light and have a really excellent purchase for my thumb, I was able to basically just mash down on it, and basically the gun's not moving at all during recoil, which is really, really nice. Makes it really easy to track the iron sights. Now, what's very important when talking about any light is, of course, the battery life. So the battery life on this with 800 lumens again is right at 2 hours. And now I haven't tested that exactly, but I've had this for over a month now and I have not switched out the batteries. It does use two CR123A batteries, and the locking mechanism, again, very similar to a Streamlight TLR1, is very, very strong. It was very, very difficult to get it open and get the batteries in place. On top of that, the light itself is waterproof. Now, I've had this on there for quite some time. I used it. The first video that you guys would have seen it on was the Alpha short pull, short reset trigger, which of course I still have on the gun. The gun is kind of wet right now because I did some dunk tests with it earlier today. But I've had this light on here for over 1,000 rounds. So basically I used it in that video and in all my other shooting with it. On top of that, I did take this to an actual handgun training course where it was about 30 degrees out in the morning, and then it warmed up to about 45, and I did about 300 rounds, 350 rounds there. So I have used the light quite a bit. It's held up to everything that I've thrown through it. I have a fairly decent round count, and yes, it did hurt to shoot 1,000 rounds of 9mm right now, but it was definitely worth it for the video, and we have other videos coming out on this sort of stuff, including holsters and fun stuff like that. But the light has held up extremely well, no issues with it. Every time I go to turn it on, it is extremely bright. Now, after about 800 rounds or so, you really need to clean off the front lens because you're probably at around half of your actual brightness. So what you're seeing in the intro to this video, that night shooting, the lens was actually very, very dirty. So it was still showing up quite bright, especially for, you know, the inside of 40 yards, most of our shooting was. But after we cleaned it off in the second half, and we'll show you some kind of comparisons to some other lights that are on the market, it did much, much better, of course, because there wasn't all that gunk built up around the outside. Now, in terms of other testing, I went ahead and did a triple drop test. Now, I don't really like doing drop tests on my Glock Gen 3 rail because the Glock Gen 3 rail itself is really poor. There's not a whole lot of ledge there for the light to actually grab onto. And now I should note that the mount is adjustable, so it will work for most handguns, and it does not need to be switched for Glock because Glock is not quite Picatinny. It's close, but not quite. And it does not need to be switched, so you don't need like a different insert or anything else like that. It will just work with both Picatinny and the Glock mounting system. So I did a triple drop test on it. No issues whatsoever. Still turns on exactly as you would want it to. And then I did a submersion test. I actually dunked it in there a couple times. And of course the light is waterproof, and I was worried, you know, after 1,000 rounds, after 3 drop tests, if something has come loose a little bit and it loses that waterproof rating, you know, whether the lens is a little bit cracked and you're gonna get water in there or something like that. But I didn't have any of those issues, so fully submerging it in water after 1,000 rounds, after 3 drop tests, again, perfectly fine, no issues whatsoever. And that was one of the things that I was worried about this light, because I have heard from other people who bought this light around a year ago that the light did have some durability issues, some long-term durability issues. Again, the switches still work perfectly for me. They feel very tight. They're not loose. There's very little wiggle in them whatsoever. The mount is good. The lens hasn't cracked, nothing like that. Still waterproof after 1,000 rounds, 3 drops, all that sort of fun stuff. So I have not noticed the durability issues with this light that a couple other people have noted to me, but again, this was a brand new one that was sent out to me, so maybe the new ones are slightly better if they made some slight product improvements throughout the time that they've been producing this light. Again, who knows? All I know is that my unit has functioned really, really well. Now, I'm actually really appreciative of the fact that it is a TLR1 clone, because the Streamlight TLR1 is one of the most popular handgun lights on the market, especially for full-size handguns, and that means that there's a lot of holsters for it. And so keeping the similar form factor, again, nearly identical, not quite identical, but keeping a very similar form factor allows it to fit in a lot of holsters. So first up, this is my concealed carry holster. I actually do use this quite a bit when I'm carrying this instead of my Glock 26. And I've actually gone running with this holster as well. This one here is for a TLR1, and it fits nice and snug in there. No issues whatsoever. And next up we have a Blackhawk, the LTD. This one here was also sent out to me by LA Police Gear for the review because I did need a holster for it, so they were kind enough to send out this holster. This holster is like 120 bucks. Really, really nice, and again, fits in there very nicely. You have your active retention there on the side, big old thumb paddle, and it pops out really nicely. So it does fit those two. On top of it, it also fits, this is a Safariland 6378 that was actually sent out to me by one of my subscriber members, so thank you very much for that, Hugo. But it, of course, fits it just fine. Now, the one thing about this holster, why this one here is kind of a gimme, is because the 6378 does not lock onto the light, but it locks onto the gun. So the light is just kind of sitting there. There's no active retention on there, so the active retention when you push down on this little thumb pad is actually defeating the retention on the gun, not the light. So next up, let's go ahead and do a comparison between the LAPG light, a Surefire G2X Tactical, a, what is it? It's an Olight Balder Mini, which is a 600 lumen light, so two 600 lumen lights plus the Olight MIT Raider, which is more of an EDC light, but again, it's still pretty punchy. And again, they're around a similar price point. So comparing it to some other lights, let's go ahead and go to the infield footage and you guys can hear my commentary on all that. Alrighty, so here is the LAPG. We just cleaned it off, so it is 100% clean and ready to go. 800 lumens, really good hotspot. If you see that concrete structure out there is about 70 yards, 60, 70 yards from where we are right now. Perfect illumination, way more than what you need with a handgun light. All right, go ahead and turn it off for a second. Here is the Olight M1T Raider. Again, also 800 lumens. This is more of a handheld EDC light. It gives a much larger area hotspot. Maybe doesn't quite punch as far, but again, in the 60, 70 yards, it illuminates a lot more very, very brightly. Again, let's do them side by side. So the one on the left is the Olight, one on the right, again, much hotter hotspot is the LAPG, the TLR1 Clone. Alrighty, so next up, this is the Surefire G2X Tactical. As you can see, it gives you a immense throw, but only punches out to about 70, 80 yards with decent illumination. Not much more than that, but again, does give you a really big close-up throw. So for home defense or more urban environments, more than enough. But if you're trying to do stuff at 100 yards and beyond, not your light. Let's compare them side by side. All right, so one on the right is the LAPG, one on the left, you can see not as hot whatsoever. That is the Surefire G2X Tactical. Only 600 lumens versus 800 lumens, and the LAPG definitely punches out a lot further, still has decent throw. Alrighty, last comparison, this is going to be the Olight Balder Mini. This one here, I got them from them not too long ago. Only 600 lumens, decent runtime, completely internal battery, which is kind of interesting. Doesn't quite punch out that far, has decent throw. I would say it's pretty much very similar to the LAPG TLR1 Clone, with the difference that the TLR1 is like 20% brighter. So go ahead and do them side by side. The one on the left is the Olight, and you see the one on the right, it has a lot hotter of a center spot and can punch out much further than the Balder Mini. And this is, again, just to give you guys kind of a few comparisons to contrast with the other options, again, in a not similar price point, but in a under $100 kind of range. Alrighty, so right now we're at about 40 yards, maybe 35 yards away from our 8x12 targets. We have my vehicle over there, which is on. There's no one in it with its low beams on, just to give us some like contrasting light. So this light is actually having to push through the light to get to the targets on the other side of the light. And again, remember, we're at about 35, 40 yards. Let's go ahead and see how it handles out here in the rain. So, do I think that this light is just as good or better than the Streamlight TLR1? Well, probably not, but it is very, very good. Again, remembering that price point of around $50 to $60 against $120 to $150 for the Streamlight version. On top of that, this has fit in every TLR1 holster that I own, though again, your mileage may vary a little bit depending on how tight of a fit your holster is for your TLR1. So if you have a TLR1, you have an excellent light, and it's one of the best lights on the market for a full-size handgun, so there's no reason to switch whatsoever. But if you're in the market for a budget light and you really need something for your Glock 17 or your whatever else, insert your full-size handgun in here, the LAPG light will do just about everything that the TLR1 does, just as well for, again, 1/2 to 1/3 the cost of the TLR1. So far, so good for me. If something does happen this in the future, when we get to 2,000 or 5,000 rounds and something bad happens to it, I will of course update the video, but right now, This is a recommend for me. Again, if you don't already have a really nice weapon light, if you have a really nice weapon light or a decent weapon light on your main handgun, I don't really see a huge reason to switch to this one. Again, it is really, really good, especially for the money. But if you're in the market for a new one and you want to save yourself, you know, $100 and put that $100 to something else like a class or something else that you really want to do that will help you be better with your handgun in general, then the LAPG light is again a great way to go. Now again, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, there will be an affiliate link in the description. If you guys do want to use that, just keep in mind that I make 7% off of whatever you purchase from them. So do keep that in mind, and again, don't feel pressured to buy something whatsoever. I don't need the money from LA Police Gear, but I do like the product quite a bit. Again, if I haven't mentioned it before, 800 lumens is more than enough light for handgun distances inside of 100 yards. 80 yards is really where it's going to shine the brightest, no pun intended. But again, if it fills that niche for you for a really bright, really durable light, again, for under $100, under $75, under $60 in some cases, then this is a great light for you. But that is about it for the video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. As I mentioned at the beginning, you can like, share, and subscribe. That helps the channel out. I have a Pro 2A Patreon, which is Subscribestar. And of course, you can also buy steel plates from me, which should be back in stock by the time of this video. So that's about it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.